see life different, authentic, so magnetic. I'm out for connection. The world seems fake, but life is just so damn alive. This is no depression. If I'm cryptic, it's for your own protection, no secrets. I can tell you about the hidden message. Hello everyone, welcome to This Week in Tyranny. It's the most hardcore news show on earth. We're back with another one, episode 90. It is Sunday, August 25th, 2024. I am your host, Connett. We're getting into a key topic, one of the hallmarks of this. I can't believe I haven't done an episode fully about this before. But it's relevant this week because on Wednesday, a government study came out about fluoride lowering IQ in children. I talked about fluoride again and again in my episodes, but never dedicated a full topic to it, so that's what this one is about. Real quick, just to introduce the concept so everybody is on the same page. Water fluoridation, what is it? What am I talking about with fluoride? It's the process of adding fluoride to the public water supply. This is in the United States. It began in the United States in 1945, and actually Grand Rapids, Michigan was the first city to do it. And since then it has spread to all continents and different nations across the world. But not that many. There are few nations in the world that add fluoride to the water. The United States is the primary one. It is mainly the United States, but there are others: New Zealand, Australia, Ireland, Canada, and a few more, Brazil. Anyway, August 21st, the NIH, National Institute of Health, released a systematic review of fluoride exposure and neurodevelopment and cognition. So this is a government study. Government study comes out. This is part, I'm going to link it, of course. This is one where I'm going to go heavy with the links, with images. I'm putting the research down because it's very content heavy. This episode's supposed to stand the test of time and be a reference point for fluoride, because I'll give the whole background as I go on. But to me, fluoride is the smoking gun. It is the red hot smoking gun of tyranny in the world. It really is the thing I start with. It's crazy to me that I live in a world where water fluoridation goes on. So I get to unload all of that, and then I will need to make sure it's scientifically accurate. And that makes it a whole lot easier that a government study comes out actually admitting this now, because for years and years and years they were denying it. Mainstream science was denying this. They still do, actually. So it's very interesting. I'm catching this while the iron's hot, right? I'm jumping on this because still, as we speak, there's a lot of debunking. There's a lot of laughing at people who are against fluoride, right? There's a lot of calling it pseudoscience, things like that. And there will continue to be, but now there's the government study, the actual official position is starting to change. So when you look at this, you can really see this is history in the making while it's happening. So this NIH study was part of the National Toxicology Program. It's a program of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. This was started in 2016, actually. Then it was peer-reviewed, underwent rigorous scientific evaluation, all of this, and now it comes out. Okay, it has actually published now. Just to quote a bit from this, the NTP monograph concluded that the higher levels of fluoride exposure, such as drinking water containing more than 1.5 milligrams of fluoride per liter, are associated with lower IQ in children. There were insufficient data to determine if the low fluoride level of 0.7 milligrams per liter, currently recommended for U.S. community water supplies, has a negative effect on children's IQ. So, low amount, they call it a low amount. It's currently 0.7. Now, it was 1.2 ever since the 60s, and the government didn't lower it until 2015. And they lowered it because there started to be an uproar about dental fluorosis. So how much lower IQ are we talking? We're talking about 2 to 5 IQ points in children. Okay, that may not sound alarming to you, but this is bombshell news and information, because now the United States government is supporting a claim that has been ridiculed as pseudoscience. It's been debunked, it's been fact-checked, and it continues to this day. Like I said, I found out about water fluoridation and what it does in 2008. I was 12 years old. I was in 6th grade. And I've been telling people for 16 years about what is essentially mass poisoning by government. And I've only ever had, over the course of my entire life, 3 different reactions, really. First is, it's good for your teeth. This is like parroting. This is what everybody's heard. Even scientists will say, well, it's good for your teeth. They say it's good for your teeth. Nobody has actually investigated this claim. By nobody, I mean the people who will go argue with you when you actually know about its harmful effects. They say, yeah, but it's only for your teeth, Fluoride's good for your teeth. So it's just parroting. That's one reaction. That's the one you get the most often. Then the one I have gotten, I guess I have gotten this recently now. The other reaction, similar to the first one, is if it was really that toxic, if it was really as bad as you say, then they would have taken it out of the water by now. This is what I call the march to the slaughterhouse mentality. This is, they wouldn't do this to us. If it was really that bad, people would know about it. Right? This is counting on the fact that groups of people are smart, that the groups of people are intelligent and will figure things out if there are problems. Don't count on it. Oftentimes, something will be off, and the entire group. I'm talking about like now 5-10 people, right? I'm thinking about like my everyday life at work where this would happen. But extrapolated societally, it's almost worse. The more people you have, the worse it is. And new ideas. An exceptional person comes along and invents a new way to do things, and then we all adopt it. And nobody ever talks about the ignorance that perpetuated for hundreds of years, how nobody thought of it before. Nobody thinks about that. But by that time, you've already marched to the slaughterhouse. So those are your 2 reactions. Your third reaction is, damn, that's crazy. Like, people are like, oh shit. I can't believe that. It's disbelief. It's wanting to ignore it. So they say that. It's like, unlike the first 2, it's actually somewhat conceding to you that you could be right, but they're still ignoring it. Because if you faced it for real, then you'd be faced with the ramifications of that. Now the government slowly, gently starts to distance themselves from the blind dogma of water fluoridation. But for me, it's not a quiet shift for me. It's not going to be a quiet shift. To me, this is the shot heard around the world, that they're actually coming out with this. So I'm going into my strongest possible presentation of the reality of water fluoridation and what it means. Okay? I'm taking the opportunity. History of water fluoridation, like I mentioned, 1945. It was on the heels of a study where there was naturally occurring fluoride in one community, and those kids had very healthy teeth. This is what the study suggested, and based on that, they started implementing fluoride. But the reality is, what fluoride are we actually talking about? What is the actual substance that's going into the water, that people are putting into the water, right? The first one used was sodium fluoride. Now, sodium fluoride, if you look at the hazard sheet, sodium fluoride is listed as a poison. You see it right here, poison. Chemical identifiers, you've got this fire diamond, right, an FPA. Health, value of 3, means it can cause serious or permanent injury. Sodium fluoride is a colorless, crystalline, solid, or white powder, or the solid dissolved in a liquid. It is soluble in water, it is non-combustible, it is corrosive to aluminum, and it is used as an insecticide. It is also used to fluorinate water supplies, as a wood preservative, in cleaning compounds, manufacture of glass, and for many other uses. Now, widely known, sodium fluoride actually was for the longest known as a rat poison, because it is. It continues to be an insecticide. That's what it is. This is a poison. Now, the second product to be used, derivative of fluoride, is hexafluorosilicic acid. This is an inexpensive liquid byproduct of phosphate fertilizer manufacturing. So the fertilizer industry. You see right here, we're going to look at the hazard sheet, fluorosilicic acid. This is corrosive. It is a corrosive substance. A colorless fuming liquid with a penetrating pungent odor, corrosive to metals and tissue. Both the fumes and very short contact with the liquid can cause severe and painful burns. Used in water fluoridation, in hardening cement and ceramics, and as a wood preservative. And they say this like in the same sentence. It can cause painful and severe burns. It's corrosive to metals. It's used to harden cement, and it goes into your body in drinking water. Now, even if you don't drink tap water, if you take a shower, you're absorbing it through your skin, right? So when you put water on your skin, you're going to see that it's not going to it's not going to stay there for an hour. It's going to be absorbed. Not quite like a sponge, but it's going to be absorbed every time you rinse. Every time you rinse your mouth with water, and if you take a warm shower and you got the steam and air, then you're actually inhaling it. So you're doing more than ingesting it, right? Because the steam with all the fluoride, which that may not be the case, because when water evaporates, it is the water itself that will evaporate and not the salt. So let me not make that claim, okay? I don't actually know about the fumes itself. If just taking a hot shower will cause the actual fumes of the fluoride to come up, I don't know. It's not the point. The point is it's put in the water, in the drinking water. It's called drinking water. It's for you to drink, right? And so when you get, and now when you buy a drink or anything from the store, right, that's not filtered, like anything in a can, like when anything you take that is being cooked in water, anything that's being cooked, prepared with any water, is going to be tap water. It's not going to be filtered water, right? Unless you go out and look for it, and then it's expensive. So this is all in our foods. The effect is compounded. Okay. Back to the substances. The third and last derivative of fluoride that is used as a water fluoridating chemical is sodium fluorosilicate. Okay, sodium fluorosilicate is a poison. Again, same label. The Department of Transportation labels it as a hazard. If you were transporting it in a car, you'd have to have a poison marking on your car. Also, it would be illegal. There's a very specific way to transport these things. They're poisons. Fine, white, odorless, powdered solid. Toxic by ingestion, inhalation, and skin absorption. Used as a rodenticide. That means rat poison. This is a rat poison. Okay? All three of these. A 1993 CDC report found that 63% of the population received water fluoridated with fluorosilicic acid, 28% with sodium fluorosilicate, and 9% with sodium fluoride. So 2/3 are getting the fluorosilicic acid, the one that is corrosive, the one that is used to harden cement. I list that because it's significant, because I'm going to read about specifically fluorosilicic acid, because that's the one that is a byproduct of the fertilizer industry. Bit of a sneak preview. More statistics: 72.7% of Americans who get public water get fluoridated water. So 3/4, unless you're counting people who have like a well, who have like a single water line going just to their house. That wouldn't count. If you count those people, then only about 60% of Americans get fluoridated water. But if you live in the city, anywhere close to a city, you're getting it. In Illinois, that number is 98.4%. In my state, 98% of people get fluoride in the water, the fourth highest. So if you look at this map, I've mentioned that it happens in other countries as well. You look at this map, it shows you what percentage of people have fluoridated water with fluoride in it. You get over 60% in the United States here. You also see Australia, Ireland is another one here, Canada, I mentioned Brazil, and a few other nations, New Zealand. These are the prominent ones. You see that most of Europe almost exclusively does not get any of this, does not fluoridate the water. Mexico is an interesting one, because they don't fluoridate the water, but they put fluoride in salt, essentially having the same levels. So I'm going to leave that there, and I'll go back to this because there's a geographic element. There's an element that is very interesting. This specifically is targeted at, it seems, English-speaking nations. America, Australia, New Zealand, not so much the United Kingdom, but yes, Ireland, right? Ireland, Scotland is an interesting story that I'll visit. Now, I'm going to get started with my actual presentation, so to speak, right? Here's the structure of my claims about fluoride. That's what I'm going to talk about. First, I'm going to read a letter by a dentist that gives great background, perspective, and knowledge required to understand the issue. There's a lot of knowledge that people need to get. I'm hoping to keep it under an hour and really just pack it heavy with knowledge and data. So I'm going to do that. Then I'm going to refer to 3 presentations that I've seen that are the best. They're by PhDs, by professors, mainstream respected scientists, totally, honored individuals that have been stating the case against fluoride. That'll happen. And then I'll show you the people who are for fluoride, who are the way this is attacked, the attacks on the people making this case. And then after I've done all that, now that all these people have been vindicated, right? Now one can look at how the truth is ridiculed, how it is scoffed at until it can no longer be denied. I'll look at that, then at the end I'm making my ultimate conclusion and my extrapolation, not just about fluoride, but what it means for life moving forward. Okay, here we go. Letter by Dr. Lena Garcia, medical doctor, dentist, okay? It's titled, Why Be Concerned About Fluoride in Dental Treatments and Drinking Water, written in March 2016. What exactly is fluoride? Fluoride is a generic term used to describe a chemical compound containing the element fluorine, as well as one or more additional elements. In its pure state, fluorine is a yellowish gas that is extremely corrosive and poisonous. It is known to be one of the most reactive of all the elements in the periodic table. Because of this, fluorine exists in nature only in combination with at least one other element. Okay? It doesn't occur by itself. Important note, fluoride-containing chemical compounds are also the primary hazardous waste products that have been and continue to be generated by a number of enterprises, such as the phosphate, fertilizer, and aluminum industries. Because of the prevalence of fluoride in the Earth's crust, these industries and others that mine for raw materials inevitably produce varying amounts of fluoride-containing hazardous waste as a byproduct of their ore extraction or refinement processes. Is fluoride a nutrient or necessary material? No. Fluoride is not a nutrient for our teeth. We don't need fluoride to prevent tooth decay, nor do we develop tooth decay because we are deficient in fluoride. It is well established that fluoride has no nutritional value for the human body. Is fluoride a drug? The FDA confirms that fluoride meets the legal definition of a drug and has approved its topical use in toothpaste and mouthwash, but it has not reviewed any approved fluoride, nor approved fluoride when it is to be ingested for a reduction in tooth decay. Proponents have yet to produce any controlled peer-reviewed studies showing that long-term ingestion of fluoride compounds is safe. Of course they don't, okay? That's my words, not Dr. Garcia's. Of course they don't. Did you know fluoride is the only chemical added to public water supplies intended to treat the people drinking it and not the water itself? Fluoride has been proven to be a very effective drug for decreasing thyroid gland activity. It is used as a treatment of a condition called hyperthyroidism, characterized by excessive thyroid gland activity. There are a large number of people in the U.S. who are challenged with hypothyroidism, a condition in which not enough of thyroid hormone is produced. Why add fluoride to the water? It has never been proven to prevent cavities, and it is known to decrease thyroid function. Why should any drug be added to public drinking water supplies in a country founded on individual rights and freedom to choose? Great question. Great question, Dr. Garcia. Are other toxic chemicals bound to fluoride in water? Of the municipalities in the U.S. that fluoridate their water supply, remember, 60 to 70% of them, about 90% use as their source of fluoride a waste product from the phosphate fertilizer industry that is officially classified as hazardous waste. That is, right up until the moment it is loaded into the tanker trucks that deliver it to the water fluoridating municipalities. And then, in some unknown and apparently magical way, the hazardous waste changes into a product suitable for human consumption. Fluoride naturally occurs in the phosphate-rich rocks that are used to make fertilizer. When the phosphate-rich rocks are treated with sulfuric acid to dissolve the phosphate, 2 highly toxic gases are produced, hydrogen fluoride and silicon tetrafluoride. If these gases go out into the smokestacks of the fertilizer factories, They're classified as environmental pollutants, known to be capable of damaging crops, injuring animals, and harming humans. But smokestack scrubbers, which are actually a spray of water, are used to capture these toxic gases containing fluoride and new compounds known as hydrofluorosilicic acid, or hexafluorosilicic acid, or simply fluorosilicic acid are formed. The resulting wastewater that accumulates from this process also contains arsenic and other toxic byproducts that come from the processing of phosphate-rich rocks. Not surprisingly, the EPA classifies it as hazardous waste. But unbelievably, it is this untreated hazardous waste that is loaded into the tanker trucks and eventually added to the water supplies of numerous municipalities around the country because of the high fluoride content. Is fluorosilicic acid purified before addition to water? It is very rare for me to meet anyone, including dentists and physicians, who know the truth about where the fluoride in drinking water comes from. The vast majority of people assume that it is pharmaceutical grade, a highly refined and purified product. When I explain where it does come from, the usual first response is, well, yes, the fluoride may come from hazardous waste, but of course it's treated, refined, or purified before it's added to the water supply, isn't it? Understandably, people want to believe this because to think otherwise would be very disturbing. But the truth is, as I have previously described, that the fluoride-rich hazardous waste is not treated, it is not refined, it is not purified. Although it is untreated hazardous waste, the promoters of fluoridation will tell you that it is highly diluted. And this is true. It's highly diluted with your drinking water. Why have some municipalities stopped fluoridating water? There is no government mandate forcing states or municipalities, cities, towns, villages, to put fluoride into their drinking water. In fact, there are many communities that enjoy fluoride-free drinking water. Some never added it to begin with. Others have taken a close look at the facts and have chosen to discontinue the practice. In many cases, a group of citizens has taken the initiative to bring this information to the public and request that their local government stop water fluoridation. That is not the letter in its entirety, but I've taken the bulk of it. Dr. Lina Garcia, I didn't mention this. She's from my area, right? I can make an appointment with Dr. Garcia. I'm sure it will be pricey, as I've heard. But she's great, and she's from my area, and I thought this is a wonderful job at framing this. Incredible. Did most of the work for me, this letter. So, almost too much to talk about, and I don't want to hang around because these points are going to be repeated, refined, because the case is very solid and very clear. There's nothing you're going to pull out of a hat with this stuff. The case against fluoride is very clear and obvious, and a lot of these are Dr. Garcia's points, and then I'm going to go into these presentations that are making the other points that need to be made. The first presentation I saw is put forward by an organization called the Alliance of Nurses for Healthy Environments. This is a presentation by Dr. Christine Till, The Evolving Science of Water Fluoridation. Is fluoride a developmental neurotoxin? They used to be really mad at that word neurotoxin. It's come out that it is. This is a neurotoxin. My dentist, not Dr. Garcia, told me in 2020, fluoride is a neurotoxin. This is known. Anyway, this presentation was given in York University in Canada, February 27, 2020, right around the time I met my current dentist. The Evolving Science of Fluoride Neurotoxicity. Of course, I will link this. It's very important that you watch this, that you share it with people. Smoking gun evidence. So, in 2006, the National Research Council of Canada, that is their primary research and technology organization of the government of Canada. They reviewed all of the literature. In 2006, they published this Fluoride in Drinking Water, a scientific review of EPA standards. And they found all of these things. They mentioned the lowering of the IQ, the reproductive effects, endocrine disruption. And most confidently, they're able to link it to, of course, dental fluorosis, bone fractures, and skeletal fluorosis at even small concentrations. Now look, if you see this video has 657 views. the stuff is out there. Nobody's paying attention. It's not a hot topic issue. Continuing this, in their publication in 2006, they wrote, fluoride may trigger other health problems, including damage to the brain and disruption of the thyroid gland, as we now know. Further study was necessary, especially for vulnerable populations. One of the panel members said this report should be a wake-up call. Big red flag over here. Of course, nothing happened. Now, in this presentation, actually, that was made, 4 years ago, this study that just came out, I mentioned that was the government study was started in 2016. This is from September 2019, where their conclusions, they already revealed their conclusions. The NTP, National Toxicology Program, concluded that fluoride is presumed to be a cognitive neurodevelopmental hazard to humans. That means neurotoxic. That means it's lowering your intelligence. This conclusion is based on a consistent pattern of findings in human studies across several different populations, showing that higher fluoride exposure is associated with a decreased IQ or other cognitive impairments in children. This is the study that just came out. As you see, it was done earlier, but it was not reviewed or published in scientific journals until 4 years later. And here we are now. So Dr. Christine Till, she talks about a Canadian study of mothers and their children found that their IQs dropped. Then the Bashash study, the study of children in Mexico City, that showed a loss of several IQ points. Then another study of a link to ADHD and other disorders like this. All of these are high quality studies. These aren't just, it's just a study. These are the ones that make the cut. There are many, many studies. These are the ones that are airtight. Nobody tries to question them. And people do, of course, try to question them, fact check them, say they're not reliable. And you'll hear more about that as I go on with this. Because the critics of these studies and the critics of, anti-fluoride scientists and doctors, they've really been proven wrong over time. And now even the mainstream position is going to switch. It's going to show who was right. But unfortunately, it's going to happen very quietly, which is why I'm talking about it, because this is one of the greatest injustices, that the fact that and fluoride put in baby water specifically. I'm going to talk about the targeting of mothers and children, because if you know anything about me, that is my area where I'm ready to crack some skulls. So there we go, right? Doesn't take much to set me off. Second presentation was made available by Fluoride Free NZ. Shout out to Fluoride Free New Zealand. Great organization putting this on. This is a presentation called Fetal Vulnerability and the Fluoride Debate by Dr. Vyvyan Howard, MB, CHB, PhD. He recently retired as the professor of bioimaging, nanosystems biology, Center of Molecular Biosciences at the University of Ulster. This is a guy who's a medically qualified toxicopathologist with expertise on the effects of toxic substances on the fetus and infant during the developmental period of life. Before I finish reading his resume and bio, you should really watch this one, because you can tell when you see a man that's like a real strict classic scientist. He has respect for logic, for reality, for facts, and it doesn't matter what his views are. This is a man of integrity. He's an intelligent man. He's got a lifelong experience, and people are calling anti-fluoride voices pseudoscientific. There's some guy there are guys with their hipster beards and their little arrogant voice talking about these are tinfoil hats. No, these are people with a lifelong work that they've put in. People can't even imagine the magnitude of what we're talking about here. Anyway, Vyvyan Howard is he's a past president of the International Society of Doctors for the Environment. That's a World Health Organization and a UN-recognized NGO, representing some 30,000 medical doctors around the world. I talked about the United Nations, World Health Organization, right? I've attacked them, and I've always said, you know, there are good people within these organizations that are umbrella organizations of the UN. That's what they do. These globalist medical organizations, the mainstream ones, the ones who are pulling the strings, they, like an octopus, they reach out everywhere, and they slap their label on the efforts and the lifelong work of these people who really are skilled, and they are people of integrity and character. That's what they do. This guy broke out, right? He went and he told the truth, and of course, people like this are ridiculed. But not him, because he's Vyvyan Howard is too good, but he's also too high level for people to even really attack him too much. You'll notice that if you're really good at something, you're gonna become just more trouble than you're worth for people who try to laugh at you, and people who try to say that you don't know what you're talking about. If you're good enough, they just kind of leave you alone. It's very annoying. He has also served on the UK government regulatory committees, including 6 years as a toxicologist on the advisory committee on pesticides. So this guy's not a holistic practitioner. This is a classic medical doctor, government guy, PhD guy. Okay. In his presentation, he introduces how sensitive the fetus is. The doses up to 200,000 times below the so-called dose of no effect of BPA, bisphenol A. They've been shown to affect developing cells. He shows all this. This is why you should watch the presentation. Then he talks about how the thyroid is responsible for growth. In the first trimester of pregnancy, the baby does not produce its own thyroid hormone. It relies completely on the thyroid hormone of the mother for their growth. He goes on to say that during pregnancy, it is already a stress on the thyroid, and an increase in kidney filtration in pregnancy. It causes a loss of iodine in urine, requiring an increase of iodine. There's an iodine deficiency just by the nature of pregnancy being a stress on the thyroid. This slide now, iodine deficiency. Numerous studies on pregnant women and their offspring in the Republic of Ireland have revealed dietary iodine intake less than half of the WHO recommended level. They have only half of what is recommended. Recent research estimates between 46 and 53% of teenage girls in Ireland are iodine deficient, while in Northern Ireland, it was between 4 to 6%. So Ireland, 50% of women have iodine deficiency. Northern Ireland, about 5%. How could that be in the same geographical area? Well, the difference between Northern Ireland and Ireland is that Northern Ireland does not put fluoride in the water supply, and the Republic of Ireland does. There are, of course, different factors, but that's one of them. One thing that was mentioned is that Ireland is known for drinking a lot of beer, being beer drinkers, and of course all that water that goes into beer. What kind of water do you think it is? It's fluoridated water, not to mention the effects of alcohol. So absolutely startling results. Then in this presentation he presents results of the Haddo trial in 1999 that showed that maternal thyroid deficiency, it lowered the child's IQ by 7 points. Now, we're not talking fluoride yet. Not talking about fluoride yet. If you have a thyroid deficiency, which of course is caused by, not only caused by, but if you have low iodine, you're going to have a thyroid deficiency. And they've already shown that 50% of these women in Ireland have an iodine deficiency. So then what follows is you have a thyroid deficiency. Yep. Child's IQ decreases by 7 points. Quick interjection into the presentation, because I was putting this together, and in the beginning, this is why this is the realest show on YouTube. In the beginning, I showed all those fluoride compounds and how they're toxic, right? And they are toxic. But I'm also going to give you the other side of the coin And just, it makes a couple points. One is, don't believe everything you hear just because it sounds smart. Because if I pull up the iodine hazard sheet, you're also going to get a level 3 health risk. Iodine, if you take too much of it, it's going to hurt you. It's going to poison you. So the reason for that is, so it's not hypocrisy, right? But it's just like, this is how you have to really know your stuff. You got to know your stuff, and you can know your stuff. Just be objective and look at both sides. But the reason iodine is going to be listed as a hazard, and it is because iodine, fluoride, chlorine, bromine, astatine, they are all in the halogen family of elements, which are notoriously reactive and unstable. That is the reason they're going to be dangerous to humans, because of how reactive they are. They're just really intense and reactive. Now, iodine, although it is dangerous in high amounts, it's necessary for thyroid function. It's been shown to be necessary. This is accepted. This is just science. This is accepted now. No debate about how necessary iodine is. It's vital. It's absolutely a must, required for the thyroid to function. Fluoride has zero nutritional value. It is not required for the body to produce anything. It can remineralize your teeth if you put it on your teeth, like the way you use it in toothpaste. It can, but it doesn't have to. It has zero nutritional value. It is not a vital or needed nutrient. It's not a nutrient. It has zero value to the human body. Okay? But full disclosure, okay? That they're both halogens. They're both very intense. But one of them is neurotoxic, and the other one, you cannot have neurodevelopment without it. Okay? And what we're doing is we're replacing one with the other, and that will be shown. I'll continue with this presentation. I mentioned the Bashar study. The Bashar study is like the smoking gun of fluoride. That study, it was the cognitive function, meaning intelligence, of the child, of a woman's child, was measured at age 4 and then again at 6 to 12. And they found, this is in Mexico City, for every 1 milligram per liter increase in the mother's urine level, right, because they measured how much fluoride was there. For every 1 milligram per liter, the children lost an average of 5 to 6 IQ points. A very large effect. A 1 milligram per liter difference in fluoride would be roughly the difference between living in a fluoridated area of the USA compared to a non-fluoridated area. 1 milligram per liter is 1 part per million. I mentioned now it's 0.7 is the limit. It was 1.2, and that is only in drinking water. That is not counting what you're getting from foods, what you're getting from the environment as a whole, which is a lot more, and it accumulates. And this has been shown that fluoride with other elements, like with other elements that is mixed with it, it is actually going to intensify the neurotoxic effect. Okay. Now this 5 to 6 IQ points. This is the significance of small effects in a population of 260 million, right? Something like the United States. This is what your IQ distribution is. This is a standard IQ distribution. You've got your average, you've got your mean of 100. Okay, there's most people. And then you've got the outliers. You've got 6 million people that are going to be, I don't even like to, it's sad to use the term. Like the official term is mentally retarded. Then you're going to have 6 million that are gifted, and then you have the beautiful middle of people. My best friend, the bell curve. I love the bell curve, it's my old friend. So what will happen if you have a 5-point decrease, right? In an individual, it may not be the end of the world. If you're looking at across a population, you've now had a 57% increase in what will be classified as a mentally retarded population. You've got people that need help with life, like daily tasks. And you've got 3.4 million of them more. And you've cut out your geniuses, your gifted individuals, by 3.6 million. You've cut them in over half of your exceptional people. Those people that change the way life is lived for the rest of the bell curve, right? Because it's not just about the outliers, it's about everybody, right? Everybody has to live in this world and exist in it. This is the head of the train. These people are the head that drives change and makes things better, not just for themselves, but for everyone involved. To take us there, towards a better life, to push us towards the right side of that graph. Fluoride is pushing us to the left. And that is that is another dense but very valuable presentation. Now, third presentation, this one is like a grand finale. It's by Professor Paul Connett. Paul Connett, he gave a presentation to the New Zealand Parliament again. New Zealand. Their parliament prohibits recording. So he re-delivered this presentation, and that's what you'll actually be seeing here, that I'll show in screenshots. Again, you should listen to this one. This one is like one you could send to somebody, because it's not so dense on the studies. It is he's very good at conveying the totality of the situation, like Dr. Garcia's letter. If you're going to send anything to anybody, I'd send Dr. Garcia's letter. And then if it's people that don't read and want to see a guy, or maybe they'll just, they'll be impressed because he looks pretty respectable, right? Sometimes people don't listen to you unless you're a man dressed in a suit or like dressed nice, for whatever reason. If you don't have gray hair or a lab coat, they won't listen to you. But beside the point, I've got a slide here just with his credentials. Retired professor of chemistry. He taught chemistry at St. Lawrence University in Canton, New York for 23 years. This is a PhD chemist. He specialized in environmental chemistry and toxicology. Then he, of course, talks about the Bashar study, and then the subsequent criticism by the ADA, the American Dental Association. Their criticism was that, Mexico fluoridates their salt, and those results don't apply to the U.S. They agreed that those results they didn't question the veracity of the study. They just said, hey, the Bashar study is about girls in Mexico City. That has nothing to do with America because they fluoridate their salt, and so it's completely different. It was a foolish position to take because it has been actually shown that the exposure from all sources of fluoride in the U.S., in Canada, in New Zealand, is just about the same as Mexico City. So it's just about the same, actually. So it was a rookie mistake by those guys from the ADA. They jumped the gun, and this happens a lot. If you watch these three presentations, you'll see this reoccurring theme that right away they jump to criticize and they question something about the study, something about the way it was done. It wasn't done the right way. They don't want to respect it, right? They don't want to acknowledge it. But over time, they've been vindicated. We've won the fluoride debate. Okay, this will go down as a victory. It's just unfortunately the victories are too quiet because people don't read the right things. People don't pay attention to the right things. And by the way, if I was the government or if I was some type of, medical association that is pushing pseudoscience, I would have a lot of this stuff coming out now before the election because it seems like people really like that stuff and they'll be much more concerned with that or what RFK Jr. says, and not with actual science that's relevant now. Since 1991, there have been 59 IQ studies from China, India, Iran, Mexico, and New Zealand. 52 of those 59 have shown lower IQ among children in high fluoride villages compared to low, whether it's naturally occurring or artificial. He then talks about some of the scientists or some of the critics who said that they actually said that it was a shift of less than 1 IQ point, and it's of no significance, which was a mistake because the shift was 1 standard deviation, not 1 IQ point. So they made a mistake. It's 1 standard deviation, which is 7 IQ points. Standard deviation of a IQ bell curve is 14. So then they corrected it, but when they corrected it, they said, yes, the claimed shift of less than 1 standard deviation is of no significance, but that's the 5 or 6 IQ points. That's 7 IQ points we're talking about, and I just showed that significance. Then Paul Connett, he makes the claims that go forgotten in this whole thing that you would forget to make. The most important is that it is just wrong and irresponsible in principle to administer any medication by putting it in a public water supply. That's not how we do medicine. This is how we treat farm animals, not people. You want them to take something and just put it in their water. This is what people do to their chickens, right? That's us. He makes another great point that teaching brushing teeth in school does the job. In Scotland has done an amazing job at completely eliminating these dental problems, these tooth issues. Just teach the kids to brush their teeth. Get them in the habits of doing this. This is what I should have done. I didn't brush my teeth a lot when I was a kid. Like, this is what has effects later, all this sugar. Leaving the sugar on there. You don't need any fluoride. You can just rinse it out. And just scrub it. Like, did you know that humans used to live before toothbrushes and they were fine somehow? They were fine because they didn't have refined sugars. They were fine because they didn't have all this artificial stuff. Makes another point, Paul Connett. He shows that swallowing fluoride, swallowing it, has no proven benefit. It has benefit only applied topically. It can remineralize your teeth. That's why we use it in toothpaste. By the way, why can't it remineralize your teeth? Remember the hazard sheet about the hexafluorosilicic acid? It's a concrete hardener. It's used to like make glass. It'll like make a layer. It's used, right? It's corrosive to metal. So when you put it on like this rock, which is like where it occurs naturally, like fluoride is like on these rocks. It is like right, phosphate-rich rocks. That's what it does to your teeth. It'll settle on there. That's what it's meant to do. It's not meant to touch your tissues because it's gonna eat through them. It's toxic. It's corrosive. It's a rat poison. So how is it not a people poison? And here's the worst. Here's where we get into my area. Okay, here's when people are writing their own death certificates for me. He talks about, Paul Connett, he talks about some of these health officials holding up these pictures like this is medical officer of health. Dr. Hazel Lynn holds up a picture of a child's teeth in New Zealand. She's holding it up because she's making the point that this is what will happen to children's teeth if we don't put fluoride in the water. But what has actually come out is that this is a picture of baby bottle tooth decay, BBTD. Okay, it's caused by sucking on the baby bottles. And you can actually see this because you see all of the damage, the destroyed teeth. They're on the top and they're on the sides. The front teeth are going to be in better shape because when the babies are sucking on the bottle, they're protecting it with their tongue. So it is actually caused by sucking on these baby bottles. It has nothing to do with fluoride, having it or not having it. But this is what they'll hold up for you to manipulate, to guilt trip, and to emotionally blackmail mothers and their children, pregnant mothers and fathers, to put fluoride in the water, which lowers their IQ. That is evil on such a grand scale. Now, I don't know to what degree this woman knows anything, right? She probably just had the picture put in their hand and told to do things like politicians are. But I'm looking at this snapshot and I'm looking at if it just, to me, I get the feeling that this is night and day the spirit of these people. I think that Paul Connett is a real man, right? This is a courageous individual, and this here is a scarecrow, is a piece of trash. This is a piece of garbage promoting this stuff. Okay, knowingly or not, this is what you're doing. You're playing on people's emotions. You don't even know what you're doing. Me to do this, to hold a picture up and be trying to sway pregnant mothers' decisions on what to put, what to give their babies, I would have to be so certain that I'm doing the right thing. And I know I'm doing the right thing doing this. People have said to me, like, you have to be really sure if you're talking about medical stuff and you're talking about vaccines and all this stuff, and I am. I've put in the time. I know what I'm looking at because the evidence is very clear. It's just people don't trust themselves. People don't trust themselves. And unfortunately, these maggots, these politicians, they trust themselves a whole fucking lot. They magically think they're doing the right thing. just the opposite. It's just not my world, these people. I'm from a different world. So, continuing the presentation, he shows evidence that fluoridated communities actually have several more dental surgeries, several times more, like 5 times more dental surgeries than the non-fluoridated communities. So it's completely upside down. The fluoride is not only neurotoxic, it's bad for the teeth. It causes dental fluorosis. It causes all this spotting of the teeth. That's why the government had to lower the limits in 2015. Well, so what? They lowered it. It's a poison. Lower it to 0. Ridiculous. And then, to just make this worse, the way people talk about this stuff, you just look it up. Look up fluoridation, and you'll see it's not quite as bad as vaccination, but it's just about. They're really arrogant about how they debunk it, how they ridicule you, how anti-fluoride people are like anti-vaxxers. So let me talk about a whole bunch of this junk so-called science. And by the way, another point that Paul Connett made having to do with junk science is that they will these studies that are pro fluoridation, they will compare concentration, like okay, so we've had studies shown that this concentration of water, it was like a concentration of say 1.2 or 1.5, and we didn't have any negative effects. But you're not supposed to compare concentration. You're supposed to analyze dosage, the total dose of it, because you could have a concentration of 1.5 milligrams per liter, but you could be a person that is a low water drinker, drink like a glass a day, and then if you drink like a gallon a day, you have taken many more times of the poison. So it's like the concentration would increase by 5. So people just don't know how to look for junk science, pseudoscience. We're not the pseudoscientists. You've got a whole bunch of pseudoscience now on YouTube, especially because even though the government will quietly admit that fluoride lowers IQ, you're still going to have these popular YouTube channels. You're still going to have in the minds of the children and the students growing up the idea that this is safe. And it's probably not going to get phased out for years and years and decades, and I think it'll never get taken out of the water. I think they've dug their heels in with this stuff. It's gone too far. They won't admit this is killing people, and they don't need to, because we're dumb enough to believe it. So let me talk about these arrogant debunkers. Just imagine this, going from how they're killing children's brains with this, how they're really hurting children with this, their teeth, the suffering, the cutting, chopping of their wings, of their potential, on one hand, and then this other hand, a guy makes a video like this. It's a channel called Dark Science, almost 1 million subscribers. He has a series called Questions for Pseudoscience: Does Fluoride Lower IQ? This is 2 years ago now. Look in the comments. They got some comments. People are like, "Oh, this didn't age well." That's right. 100,000 views on this. Very few will know, but it's still, again, look at this. You got the lab coat with the mad scientist hair, with their little raised eyebrows. You see the snobbery, the arrogance, and they're laughing at this claim that fluoride lowers IQ. And they're going to present their pseudoscience, not looking at the studies, not actually listening to these presentations, reading the books about fluoride. No, just going to parrot a couple things, just going to repeat some lines. Look at this though. This is right. I'm assuming this is around the time fluoridation was being introduced, right? 50s, 60s, 1945. Look at these signs. Forced medication is un-American. Don't force medication down our throats. Sodium fluoride is for the rats. And here comes your poison. Are these quacks? Are these tinfoil hat women? Are they saying anything about conspiracy? No. These are sensible statements, logical statements. These are real women. And you've got what constitutes the so-called alpha male today. It's a little skinny pencil neck in a lab coat with 8 pencils, raising his eyebrows, with his hair like he's a prima donna celebrity or something, scoffing at everything, just spouting and parroting government-sponsored big pharma, big corporation sponsored lines, not knowing even what he's talking about. This is who we got influencing people now, as opposed to this, real women, real mothers who are concerned. Meanwhile, they work full-time jobs taking care of the house. And you got people making these videos and just playing science, you know, playing the new age pseudo spiritual scientific leaders of today. They're the gurus of today, not just the doctors, but the scientists, the biologists, the researchers, and mainly the people influencing people, the people spouting this nonsense, okay, making these videos. Another one, Professor Dave Explains. 3.2 million subscribers, 500,000 views on this. This is actually very recent. Lies people tell about water, part 1, water fluoridation. I watched a few minutes of this. I actually watched the majority of this because I'm seeing, like, I know of this person's channel. I've seen him talk about some things before. Not much, but I'm watching it like, okay, I'm expecting them to have some good claims. I'm preparing myself for what I'm about to say. Like I said, I look at both sides. So I'm expecting this guy to be good. And there's nothing here. Like I said, they're just repeating the lines that have been stated by the associations, by the organizations, and they just put an emoji up. They do an animation, they put a red check mark. This was actually shown to be false, and then, you know, they just throw in a sentence or two, not backed up by anything, and it sounds so confident, and really it decreases the alarm. So people who type in water fluoridation, they've probably been told by someone that this is actually dangerous, and they're trying to have somebody settle them down, and they find somebody like this, like Professor Dave. Look at his face. This is what a man is supposed to be today. Guys like this, right? These are the rock stars of today. They got the long hair, but it's just like this. They're supposed to be like the rebels, right? Like, these guys can have an edge. They can scoff. They don't need to ask for permission, right? Because these guys are supposed to be the new bad boys, but they're actually submissive, subservient little rats. These are little rodents, these people, and this is what they do. Very little actual, you know, actual brain power on the other side to even argue with. There is no real battle here, scientifically. There is no clash of ideas. It's pretty obvious. It's a neurotoxin. The case is so clear on fluoride. How can it be anything other than poison? But that brings me to one of my last points. Who benefits from this poison? Because it's not the government that's requiring it. There's no government requirement to put this stuff in there. They don't need to. The aluminum and fertilizer companies, they're in this. This is who benefits. It's for their disposal and their profit. Not only are they selling this stuff, it would cost them so much money to dispose of it because it's hazardous waste. So the way they dispose of it is to put it in your water, to reuse it. This is their form of recycling. That's who benefits from this. This is why the government doesn't have to make it a law. They don't need to. The money makes it implemented without the government's hand in it. It's just the public relations that needs to be maintained. Then you have multinational foreign and domestic corporations. Corporations are benefiting from this, like huge corporations who don't need to worry about competition. They start worrying about manipulating their market, shaping the market of the future. Like if you're talking about Amazon or something like that. A lower IQ customer base is better for these companies because then they don't have to work as hard. We're talking about like 20, 30 years into the future. And you better know companies are thinking this way. You don't want intelligent consumers because intelligent consumers are going to force you to spend more money to offer them a better product. They're going to force you to compete, to do a good job. Then, who else benefits is the Fabian socialists, the subversive Marxists, and other religious extremists, because that's what socialists are. They're religious extremists. And by the way, I showed the map of the different parts of the world that get fluoride in their water. You see, that's why Europe doesn't get all this fluoridation. And if you go to Europe, you'll see there's a bit of a healthier environment. It seems to be a more healthy lifestyle. The people there just look better, look more vibrant. It is because their environment is not being poisoned as much. Why? Because their mindset is already conquered. It's already suited and it's already adjusted to the contemporary predominant global ideology, which means being submissive, being compliant, and being group oriented. Europe has that. Look at this map. The fluoridation is cut down the middle. You got South America and North America, it's fluoridated heavily. Australia, New Zealand, cut away from the crown, far away from the old world, fluoridated heavily. Asia, most of Africa, and Europe, no fluoridation needed. Why? Because the Asian people will never free themselves from Chinese communism. The Indian people will never free themselves from the caste system. The Middle East will never free themselves from Islam. And Africa has already been plundered and destroyed. And Europeans are too cowardly. The men have been castrated, cut off. They have no balls. They're done. They don't have a shot at freedom. The Americas have a shot at freedom. This is why they're being fluoridated. This is why their IQ is being attacked. The English-speaking languages. Because if you speak English, you're going to find Paul Connett. You're going to find Vyvyan Howard. You're going to find Dr. Garcia. You're going to find Dr. Christine Till. And you're going to fucking find Conrad Rogas if you look hard enough. And you listen to people like that, your freedom's going to be pretty fucking hard to take away by anybody. Doesn't matter what army you have. That's going to be rough. That's going to be a stupid ass choice to fuck around with a group of people like me. Stupid ass choice. Who else benefits from water fluoridation? Foreign businesses and governments. I just spoke about it. The Chinese, actually, yes. The Chinese corporations, the Arabian corporations, the wealth that's outside of the United States is competing with the United States. Foreign governments that want to overthrow the United States. Of course they want to lower the IQ. So they're going to fund these studies that are pro-fluoride. They're going to fund the public relations campaigns. They're going to fund these people that are going to make these fucking pseudo-scientific videos laughing like they're laughing at the tinfoil hats, and they're laughing at these idiots who don't know that fluoride's actually good for your teeth. And last group of people who benefits are straight up psychopaths and sociopaths, of whom there is a greater prevalence in government and the corporate world. That's been shown. And I'm not just talking about sadists who want human suffering. I'm also talking about just narcissists who want a more easily controllable population. They want to put a distance between them and the people they're manipulating so they can exalt themselves. Classic narcissism. People watch all these videos about narcissists now. Everybody's about, psychology and everything, talking about relationships with narcissists, and they can see it in their personal life, but not societally. They don't see that we have a narcissistic world run by narcissists. People who have false inflated power, who are actually very scared of you, who actually want to keep you down, who don't want you to achieve. That concludes my episode and presentation about fluoride, just a bit over an hour. But I have a cherry on top. For my people who love, you already know, you love to get involved in politics, you love thinking that this is actually going to change something. This was on the website of the Fluoride Action Network. By the way, who is the director of the Fluoride Action Network? It's Paul Connett. He co-authored a book called The Case Against Fluoride. A remarkable man. This was done by someone from the organization. Urgent action needed. Tell President Trump to veto H.R. 2422. This is from 2018 when Donald Trump was president. Who knows about this? None of you know about this. Nobody knows about this because fluoride is not talked about. The real issues are not talked about. The United Nations are not talked about. It's all these side issues. It's all these fake issues, and this is why politics is dumb and bullshit. It's just a circular jerk-off sessions. You're jerking each other off. Stop thinking that you're in the game. You're not in the game. reading now from this appeal. Urgent action needed. Tell President Trump to veto it. On President Trump's desk is currently a bill created and promoted by the American Dental Association that, if signed into law, could allow the CDC and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services to provide funding to state dental associations and regional oral health coalitions promoting fluoridation and lobbying for its expansion. In other words, even more tax dollars could go into pro-fluoridation propaganda with little accountability. Needless to say, not a penny of this will be used to tell American people about the U.S. government's funded studies linking exposure to fluoride during pregnancy and lowered IQ and increased indicators of ADHD in offspring. Quoted, referenced Bashar study. While fluoridation isn't mentioned in text or in the ADA's lobbying materials, it is a primary part of their Action for Dental Health initiative, and if you read between the lines, you can see that the vague language of the bill authorizes the use of federal funds to develop and implement initiatives to improve oral health through community-wide dental disease prevention programs, and by increasing public awareness and education related to oral health and dental disease prevention, which incorporates all the keywords necessary to include the ADA's favorite program, fluoridation. Effectively, by leaving controversial fluoridation language out of the bill and replacing it with vague authorization, the ADA has successfully tricked House and Senate members. Now we must try one last Hail Mary effort to educate the president. While chances are slim he will choose this for the first veto of his presidency, our efforts now will at least serve to alert his administration to the public health debacle that is fluoridation. That was the Action for Dental Health Act of 2018. Of course, Donald Trump signed it into law on December 11th, 2018, because that's what public officials do. They do what they're told. Same as doctors and scientists, unless they're the kind who stand up to their whole profession, their whole set of colleagues, and they stand up on behalf of their principles for their own dignity, for their character, for their integrity, for their intelligence, and they risk it all. Like my family doctor who says, we don't do any vaccinations here. I heard that happened this week. You know, they said we're not giving you a vaccine here. So, to everyone, a lot of you have children. This is my call to action. No one is talking about fluoride, and water fluoridation is actually not censored and controlled the way the topic of vaccination is. I can actually talk about this openly. So, with this now that's presented, pick up the sword and go out onto the battlefield. Do not be consciously ignorant and cowardly. If you know the reality of water fluoridation and you don't open your mouth to stop harm done to children, you're my enemy. You become my enemy. Isn't it obvious? How could I stand shoulder to shoulder with somebody like that? You know what's happening to children and you're not going to help? What will it take? Why should I count on you? You would turn on me. You would stab me in the back. I don't care about people like this. Get out of my life. I don't need you. So this is what none of those brilliant and courageous professionals that I use their work, none of them have said that. There's something none of them have said. But they've done their part. They've done what they needed to do. So unless you are, like them, at the cutting edge intellectually and mentally, unless you are the brains of the war for life and health, and you're not, then be the muscle of it, like me. Not literally attacking people, not physically taking over the water supply, but speaking the truth loudly and overpowering the liars and the propagators of liars who are just wrong. Overpower them with your mental prowess and your truthfulness, and also with your volume and presence. At the least, and if you're really willing to go further in what is a righteous war, contact me personally. Comment, email me. You can go on Telegram or Threema or any other encrypted form of communication if you are concerned about privacy or concerned about being listened to or watched or being killed. I'm not concerned with any of that. I'm concerned with being a man for myself, my future wife, and future children. And people don't get, the world is still so much freer than what people think. You can still say that openly. You can still say these things openly still, and nothing's going to happen to me. People think if they do anything against injustice, they'll be like swept off the street or arrested in the middle of the night. And it's because people have never tried, they've never attempted to stand alone, stick your chest out, be honest about what you think, and face the world head on. You do that and you'll be surprised how safe, sustainable, and reliable of a place that is to live in. Yeah, people are getting arrested, they are being killed for telling the truth. They always have, though. But today, when there's so much information and there are so many cameras, the only reason people are being killed or arrested at all is because the horde masses of cowards who could have been men. You are putting fluoride in the water with your active ignorance and your passive compliance. That's what these so-called men are doing. That's the way to get fluoride out of the water. And that's it. That's it. That's episode 90. Long overdue. Honestly, it's crazy that people don't talk about this. But that was very fun for me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys, old listeners, new listeners. I'm not as angry as I sound. It's just like they're doing this to children, so you know. Like I said, if you're not feeling what I'm feeling, then you're my enemy. Easy. Nothing more needs to be said. Please join me next week. I'll be doing a show from Florida, so it's gonna be fun. We're gonna get nice and tropical. It's gonna be a nice, relaxing This Week in Tyranny next week. Maybe we'll talk to some people. You know, who knows? Maybe we'll do something different. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll see you next week on This Week in Tyranny.